let's get involved, involved, let's get involved, involved, let's get involved, 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 let's get involved, involved, let's get involved, involved, let's get involved.
I would like to start by reading from Chinua Achebe's book, The Trouble with Nigeria. And I read two excerpts from pages 38 and 39. Let me start quickly with page 38, very quickly. He says, the Weekly Star of 15 May 1983 has this on its front page under the title, The Nigerian and Corruption, in quotes, keeping an average Nigerian from being corrupt is like keeping a goat from eating yam. Chinua Achebe wrote this book in 1983, and he continues, as I write this in my hotel room in Kano, Monday, 16 May 1983, I have two of this morning's papers on my table, the National Concord and Daily Times. I shall go no further to my examples of Nigerian corruption. The Concord carries a banner headline, Fraud at P&T, followed by a story with no less authority than that of the Federal Minister of Communications, Mr. Audu Ogbe, that the federal government is losing 50 million naira every month as salaries to non-existing workers. In the course of 1 year, Nigeria loses 600 million naira in this particular racket. A series of little comparisons may bring home the size of this loss. With 600 million naira, Nigeria could build 2 more international airports, like the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos. Or if we're not keen on more airports, the money could buy us 3 new refineries, or build us a dual express motorway from Lagos to Kaduna, or pay the salary of 10,000 workers on grade level 01 for 40 years. Regardless of whatever school of thought you belong to, something needs to be done urgently about the decaying values in our society. And I'm confident that the current war against corruption and the judicial structures that exist are not enough. So something more disruptive needs to be done. Some like me have argued that corruption in Nigeria can only be dealt with when we give it the high prominence that it deserves, and when we acknowledge how pervasive it has become. Proponents of this school of thought argue that since corruption has become so pervasive, that every attempt to fight corruption will always have a political connotation. Unless, of course, whoever is fighting corruption is willing to cleanse the organ stables of his own political party first, which in reality has never happened and is unlikely to happen given our current political and electoral culture. Even when the military took over from civilians in 1983, it did not fight the corruption within the military with the same tenacity and alacrity with which it fought the corrupt politicians, leading ostensibly to another coup in 1985, perpetrated by some of the corrupt elements that it had failed to flush out. So, if corruption has been that pervasive, then maybe the right response to it will be to elevate it to the status of a national disease and deal with it the same way other national diseases have been dealt with in the past, a la apartheid in South Africa with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or military dictatorship in Nigeria and the Human Rights Violation Commission known as the Oputa Panel. Perhaps, rather than trying to hunt down and persecute the seemingly never-ending list of corrupt public officers and their private sector cronies, and end up being accused of witch hunting because they belong to the opposition, perhaps we should convene a National Truth and Reconciliation Commission, an Oputa panel on corruption that exposes all the acts of corruption since independence, give the perpetrators an opportunity to come forward and be forgiven after they have made a public confession on television, returned part of the stolen fortunes, and received the public humiliation that they deserve. You see, my dear friends, this will deliver a much bigger impact than the current cat and mouse approach that still ends up with plea bargains and plenty of political undertones that takes away the credibility of the anti-corruption exercise and still leaves us with a national psyche that is not yet ready to do away with corruption. At least since 1995 in South Africa and 1999 in Nigeria, apartheid and military human rights violations have been removed from our national culture. The approach used in both instances could seem absurd when it comes to fighting corruption, but it may represent the type of disruptive strategy that we need, especially since the current approach of arresting and plea bargaining seems to be political, politicized, and only one-sided.
Omagbitse Barrow is the promoter of the Let's Get Involved campaign and an aspirant for the Federal House of Representatives, Omagbitse Federal Constituency of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, under the platform of the Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party, ANRP. You can find out more about the ANRP and Omagbitse's Let's Get Involved campaign using the information on the screen. Get involved.